Well, federal prosecutors announced today that a grand jury has indicted a Cheektowaga strip club owner and former DEA agent on a long list of charges, including conspiracy and bribery. The U.S. Attorney's Office says that Joseph Bongiovanni used his position at the DEA to shield people who paid bribes, including Faro strip club owner Peter Geraci.
As an agent for the Drug Enforcement Administration, Joseph Bongiovanni was supposed to be stopping the flow of drugs into Western New York. But federal prosecutors say Bongiovanni was doing the opposite. In a bombshell indictment obtained exclusively by the 7 Eyewitness News I-Team, prosecutors say the DEA agent was corrupt and protected his drug-dealing friends who had ties to the Buffalo Mafia. In exchange for that protection, the drug dealers paid Bongiovanni more than $250,000 in bribes. The indictment states that from 2008 to 2017, Bongiovanni provided information about investigations, including the status of specific investigative techniques, potential witnesses, and confidential sources during routine recurring meetings with drug traffickers who were paying him bribes. The indictment, secured by U.S. Attorney J.P. Kennedy, states that Bongiovanni protected his drug-dealing friends from federal investigations as they distributed 1,000 kilograms of marijuana and cocaine on the streets of Western New York. Bongiovanni's friends, the indictment states, included individuals he believed to be members of, connected to, or associated with Italian organized crime in the Western District of New York and elsewhere. Bongiovanni, who faces 11 federal charges of conspiracy, accepting bribes, obstructing justice, and providing false statements, is due in federal court right now.
The operators of a well-known restaurant here in Buffalo have once again been referred to as reputed members of the mafia in Buffalo. This came during testimony today at the trial of Joseph Bongiovanni.
Inferences regarding Joseph Todaro Sr. and Jr.'s reputed involvement in organized crime have been bandied about for decades. It is something the Todaro family has long denied and something which the government has never proven. Yet once again, their names were brought up today through the testimony of a retired FBI agent. 10 years before this raid at Faro's Gentlemen's Club, which ultimately led to charges against Agent Bongiovanni, another raid was conducted here on Halloween 2009. The feds were looking into whether club owner Peter Geraci was in violation of his probation after informants said he was dealing drugs. Now retired FBI agent Tom Herbst testified today that he was there too, but his interest in Geraci was tied to an investigation of unsolved murders from the 1980s linked to organized crime. While on the stand, he stated that the government believed both Joseph Todaro Sr. and Jr., who operated La Nova Pizzeria, were organized crime figures. As Geraci is a blood relative of the Todaros, Herbst was interested in speaking with him. Shortly after that 2009 raid, Herbst says he got a call from Agent Bongiovanni saying Geraci had information he'd exchange in consideration of any probation violation charges he might face. He also said he was told by Bongiovanni not to bring his partner on the Safe Streets Task Force, Amherst Police Detective Robert Cottrell, seen here, and who also testified today. Herbst says he went to the electric tower where the DEA offices were, but found it odd that Bongiovanni insisted they meet outside those offices on the mezzanine level of the building, to which Geraci also attended. During the meeting, though, Herbst said Geraci offered nothing of substance, and then when he later told Bongiovanni he had enough to make a drug case against Geraci, Bongiovanni tried to dissuade him, telling him it wasn't a good case, trying to convince him prosecutors would never take it, all while leading him to believe Geraci was a confidential informant working for the DEA. Although on cross-examination, Herbst had to admit that Bongiovanni never told him Geraci was an informant. Ultimately, Herbst testified that it appeared the DEA had more interest in Geraci than the FBI, considering what he was really investigating would be interested in, and decided not to pursue a drug case against him. Well, prosecutors say this is part of a pattern by Bongiovanni of having interfered with investigations to keep the heat off drug dealers that he was being paid by.
A prostitution scandal in the Drug Enforcement Administration is prompting calls to clean house. Agents are accused of attending sex parties funded by drug cartels. The parties allegedly took place between 2005 and 2008, but investigators only found out years later.
The report looks into numerous allegations of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct at the 4 law enforcement agencies that belong to the Department of Justice. But the allegation that's getting all the attention is that DEA agents had sex parties with Colombian prostitutes over a period of years. The report says DEA agents attending sex parties in Colombia should have known the prostitutes in attendance were paid with cartel funds, the same drug cartels the officers were supposed to be fighting. To make matters worse, most of the sex parties occurred in government-leased quarters where agents' laptops and BlackBerry devices were present, potentially exposing them to extortion, blackmail, or coercion.
This report demonstrates that the DEA and others, they are engaging in activity that puts our national security at risk.
The report even says that a foreign officer allegedly provided protection for the DEA agents' weapons during the parties. 10 agents were investigated and 7 admitted to DEA investigators that they participated in the sex parties. Their punishment was nothing more than suspensions, ranging from just 2 to 10 days.
I think it was President Reagan said, "We're from the government. We're here to help."